What is up, everybody? Welcome to the First Round Fantasy Podcast. It is Strategy Saturdays. I am joined by Justin Morsaz. I'm your host, Jacob Bartley, and we're going to get into it. If you didn't already know, this is just our second episode of the week, basically, on the First Round Fantasy Podcast, but it's a little bit different of a show. We give the injury updates as the Friday practice reports come through. There's a lot of updates throughout the week from our first episode to this episode. And any injury updates, any COVID updates, we're going to cover those things. We're also going to talk about the Thursday night game that happened recently, and then we're going to get into some little bit deep dives into some flex picks, some dynasty picks, and some super flex options like we like to discuss. But before we get to that, how are you doing, Justin?
Good. Enjoying the weekend. Can't wait for Sunday football as always, my man.
I know. Sunday's the best. I love watching the morning games in the morning. It's
awesome. No lie. I went to work on Thursday and I was like having a normal day, and then I was like, oh snap, there's football tonight, and my whole day changed. So imagine how Sundays are. I'm sure we all feel like that.
Well, and also last week there was no Thursday football, so that's probably why you forgot.
Yeah,
because it felt like we didn't have Thursday football anymore.
Yeah, that was a weird Thursday. I was hoping for it, and then I saw that no game, so I was happy to see Thursday night's game, even though it was kind of a bad game. But
that is funny that you mentioned that. On Mondays and Thursdays, I'm like in a good mood all day because I'm like, hey, we got some football tonight. It's just, and I normally, because I play in more leagues than I should, and I usually have a player in every game almost. I almost have a player in every game.
Stressful.
I play in 5 leagues. I know you play in 2, so probably not that many, but most games I would say you probably have.
Yeah, at least I like to have players everywhere. Yeah.
I even like when my bench players play because it's, it can change things, right? Like let's say one of your bench players who is a startable player goes off. Suddenly they're a trade piece, It changes things as well. So it's not always, doesn't have to be my starter and for me to be excited.
Yeah, definitely. It's good to watch it all.
Awesome. Well, one more thing before we get started here. If you guys have not, please go to your whatever podcast format you use, audio podcast. You can check us out. Search First Round Fantasy. We should be there. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify. It is one of the best ways to listen. When I'm at work, I throw it on, and it's way easier than loading up YouTube and using that data and everything like that. You can also download episodes on there. It's really cool. Also, if you want to get one of these cool t-shirts, you can go to TeePublic. I know Justin has like 10 on the way, right, Justin?
Oh, dude, I'm putting an order. I want a hoodie and a t-shirt.
I know. I'm going to get a hoodie now that winter's coming for sure. I know they just had a sale. So if you guys aren't familiar with this site, they like every 2 weeks they do it ended already, but every 2 weeks they do a 30% off sale. So I only buy stuff from them when it's on sale. So keep an eye out for that. And yeah, you can find one at TeePublic. Just search First Round Fantasy. Shout out to Jake Berlin for the designs and everything like that. Alrighty, so let's just recap this Thursday game really quick. Boston Scott, man, one of the most controversial things this past Thursday game. It's so funny because a lot of people had to pick him up. And in one league where I have Miles Sanders, I didn't think I was going to get him. I had the 6 waiver priority, and I was thinking there's no way I'm going to get Boston Scott. And I got him, and I think people were hesitant because last time Miles Sanders was out, Boston Scott didn't do anything. Oh, he got injured during the game, but he didn't do much. So in this league, I needed a win. And I haven't won yet, but Boston Scott going off for 18.5 full PPR points. So I was working during this game, right? And I go and check my phone every once in a while. I'm like, oh, he has like 10 points. I'm like, that's fine. Don't give me a freaking Mike Gesicki donut or what's it called? Who's my nemesis? The Tampa Bay Scotty Miller donut. That's what it's called. Just don't give me that anymore. I've had more donuts this year than I've ever had. But after the game's over, I'm like, how does he have 18 points? I'm like, what? And then I check, he has a touchdown and the Eagles won the game. I'm like, no way. So when I get off, I watch the replay and the game-winning touchdown. Like, that was a deep pass. It wasn't like in 2 yards from the goal line. It was a pretty deep pass. So I was happy to see that.
Yeah, it wasn't a gimme, and it was a nice throw, a beautiful catch, and he didn't have a bad night, like you said, but he made his day even better. So that was nice to see. I'm sure the Scott owners were happy to see that.
Absolutely. So what do you think? What if Miles Sanders misses time? Do you see him as a solid play?
Oh, I mean, you have to. You go back to that point of that you were lucky to get him, and all the Sanders owners, if he was on the waiver wire, you should have got him, because people at this point want to save their waiver wires. They don't want to take any risky moves.
I think that's what it was too. Yeah.
So you lose Sanders, I'm sure you don't have a better option, because I know Clement got a little bit of run, but that's the Scott show right now, and you have to play him. He did well. He got opportunity, and obviously Wentz likes to share the ball, so he's going to see targets as well.
Yeah, so I was going to start Justin Jackson as my second running back, which isn't bad, but now I have Justin Jackson as my third running back, which I feel really good about. So that's a way better situation after Boston Scott had a really good game. So what about if you're a Miles Sanders manager, you hold on to Boston Scott for the whole rest of the season, no matter what. That's what I'm going to do. I made the mistake of dropping him earlier this year. What if you aren't a Miles Sanders owner and Miles Sanders comes back next week? Are you holding on to Boston Scott?
Yeah, I mean, I like to hold on to those type of players. I mean, Sanders is young. He's had some injuries, so
he is injury prone.
Plays is great. But what I like to do is every week I'm knocking on that Sanders manager door. I'm like, what do you want for Scott?
Of course.
What's he going to get? Yeah. And, as the weeks go by, the better Scott does, the price is going to get a little steeper. So you might be able to trade up, which is, you lose a running back that has some value, but when Sanders comes back, he's kind of worthless to you as the owner. So make that nice waiver find a success and improve your roster. But if Sanders is out and I can't trade him, I'm going to try to play him because he's going to get run.
Yeah, I think now Boston Scott is one of those guys that has to be rostered, right? He's like a Latavius Murray or a Alexander Madison. And something absurd? I'm in a league, and it's actually a dynasty league, where I have Zeke and I have Alexander Madison, right? There's another manager in the league who has Dalvin Cook and has Tony Pollard. I've tried twice to just swap Madison and Pollard, and he won't do it. And I don't understand. Like, he must love Tony. He's not a Cowboys fan or anything like that. He's just he wants to keep Tony Pollard over Alexander Madison. Two things. Dalvin Cook's more injury prone than Zeke. So I feel like Madison is more valuable handcuff in general. But also, I guess Madison might even be the better player, in my opinion, as well. I would do that in a heartbeat if I were that other manager. I don't understand it.
It's stubborn people, man. Stubborn managers. I don't know why they don't want to do it, especially like you said, Dalvin has a little injury history. Odd. That's an unfortunate situation, but if there's a lesson out there to be learned, it's you need to secure your top handcuffs because other people will hold them just the same.
Yeah, absolutely. So were there any other players to note in this game? I mean, Fulgham had a pretty good, solid outing as well.
Fulgham, he had a really slow start and slow most of the game, and then he caught a nice long ball to kind of salvage his day.
Dude, so I was listening to the game at first, and I have Fulgham in a league where I need to win, and he kept missing. Wentz kept missing him. I'm like, what is going on? What were you watching the game?
I was a little distracted that night. I tuned in and out, but I did get to catch a lot of the targets, and he's a target hog, and I don't think that's going to change. I think it's clear that he's going to be the guy, barring a trade. It's Philly. Their offensive line is awful. Wentz is under pressure all the time, so not all of his targets, his receivers are accurate. But he's the man they're looking for. If he just pulled a couple in, he has a great day. He had a decent day, just a little under the average, but not a spectacular day. But as a bye week fill-in, you're happy.
Absolutely. And if you're a team who's hurting and you need solid players, I think he's a great, a lot of people took a while to pick him up. He was on waivers even after those couple blow up games. He was still on waivers, and
I'm one of them. I regret it. I wish
finally, he's finally picked up.
Yeah. A couple other players to note. Wentz had a great fantasy day.
Oh yeah.
I mean, if you were looking for that waiver wire pickup, he was the guy. So you were happy about that. And then Richard Rodgers, the tight end fill-in, the third stringer behind Goddard and Ertz, he saw the same targets they were seeing, but he converted. He had 14.5 PPR, and I honestly might say with Ertz having a long injury, we know Goddard's not coming back till after the bye at best, which is week 10. Maybe you stream Rodgers for 3 weeks.
Even if Goddard comes back, he's still startable because the Eagles' pass catchers are so banged up. And even when Zach Ertz and Goddard were in, they were both, at one point, both fantasy starters. So I think he's definitely a pickup. The Sterling Shepard, oh my goodness. Sterling Shepard's back. But the thing is with Sterling Shepard, he's not consistent. He has these blow-up games, but it's really good to see him back from the IR. And he's like, not rostered very highly right now. So he's going to be a waiver wire pickup next week.
Yeah, he had a nice touchdown. The look on the whole team's face was happy for the guy. And I hope they get some relevant wide receivers because literally it's hard to play any giant consistently. So it's good. I think Tate got in the end zone as well. So the two dogs over there, and Slayton had the bad day. But Shepard, I can see him being rostered if you really need it.
Yeah, did you see the Daniel Jones 80-yard run with the fall?
No, man. I heard about it, and it was supposedly insane. Like he was speeding down the field.
I was listening to it when it happened, but I heard so he supposedly ran a fraction under Tyreek Hill's fastest speed this season, which is crazy. But also, I know what happened. Like this has happened to me, but this happened to a lot of people before, where like you're running really fast. And you just you kind of just go way faster than you expected. And then you just trip over your legs kind of. So I could totally see that happening with him.
I'm sure they would have liked a touchdown, but 80 yards is 80 yards.
Hey, they still got a touchdown though in that drive.
Yeah, so. But it would have been good for him. It would have been a good moment.
I know. Can you imagine somebody who started him in a pinch or like a Superflex league? They're probably pissed.
I mean, it's better than nothing. That's still.
I know, right?
But a touchdown on top would have been beautiful.
Yeah, that's true. He got like 8 points. That's on top of he had a decent game too. Otherwise.
Yeah, aside from the Kylers and the Jacksons, I'm not sure many quarterbacks can hit 80 yards and maintain themselves.
Yeah,
that was a good run.
That's true.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get into some league news and injury updates. First thing I want to talk about, which is pretty crazy, Antonio Brown has signed with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, this is, he's not going to be able to play until week 9 at the earliest, but this is very interesting. He was rumored to go to Seattle, but this happened quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I actually figured he was going to sign with somebody. There's no way this talented of a player just stays unsigned, to be honest, because before all this stuff started happening, and then before he got cut by the Raiders, right? There was an argument to be made that he was the best wide receiver in football at that time in 2018. So, not saying he's going to be that when he comes back, but he should be on a roster.
Oh, yeah.
Oh well, I forget he played with the Patriots for one game, I think.
Yeah, he had a couple. Yeah.
Yeah. Before he got after he got cut by the Raiders, and he had a good fantasy game with the Patriots that day. So just real quickly, what if Antonio Brown comes back and starts playing week 9 and there's no other issues this season? How do you see this shaking out in Tampa Bay with the receiving core that's already in question for fantasy managers?
I'll be honest. If you picked him up, your bench was probably thin and you could afford the move, because I contemplated it. He was there, but I don't want to drop the guys I had because I formatted my team in a secure way. So if you picked him up, maybe monitor him one game, see the usage, see what the coach says, how they want to run him. But he's 32, so we know he might have lost the step that he usually had. If you have him, it's a lottery ticket. If he pans out, beautiful. If he doesn't, you tried. No harm, And I think it hurts Evans, helps Godwin, to be honest, because now as he runs those long routes, takes them over the middle, over the top, he can go back to the slot and be single covered. I think Evan owners are probably really mad, but Brady owners are going to be happy.
Yeah, so I was going to ask about that because do you think they're going to run a lot of 3 wide receiver sets where like they're all 3 on the field like every passing play?
I haven't watched many Bucs games thoroughly. I'm assuming a lot of their packages included Evans, Godwin, and even Scotty Miller sometimes. So I'd assume that Brown gets put in, Evans on the other side, Godwin runs that slot with Gronk as tight end. So yeah, I mean, if I had those weapons, that's exactly what I would do. What is
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
All right, double Evans, Brown's gonna get it. Double Brown, Evans is good. He's a touchdown monster. So imagine this. I think it's a good situation for real life.
Oh, for real football, it's great for the Bucs. Like if you're a Bucs fan, I mean, it's different. It's like you sign all these players, but if you're a Bucs fan, you love Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, so you're still got your guys there. And this team's interesting because not only is now the wide receiver core kind of convoluted, but also they're a kind of a run first defensive team in a way. So they're not going to be in crazy shootouts. We saw them shut down the Packers. We're going to see a lot of games like that. So I'm really worried, to be honest, as a Chris Godwin, or maybe not Chris Godwin as much, because like you said, it might work out best for him. But I'm just worried in general. Safe to say, anybody outside of Evans, Godwin, Antonio Brown, and maybe even Gronk is just not usable at all.
Well, I'll tell you, last week when they played Green Bay, they slapped them after the first quarter, and Brady threw 27 times. For some quarterback, that's a higher average. But before that, look at what he's thrown: 41, 46, 38, 35, 36. So he's attempting a lot of throws. So yeah, I know Rojo is coming up. He's doing good. He's been great the past.
Well, obviously, Ronald Jones is a viable starter, but I just meant like pass catchers. Yeah.
Yeah, no, but to go to your point about the run-heavy offense, I think that team has become dynamic and the defense is secure enough where if they need to throw, they're going to throw. If they are winning and they need to waste some time, they're going to run. And hopefully they're in some shootouts just because we all like to see the scoring and everything. But like they play the Raiders, the Giants, the Saints in the coming weeks. So maybe not against the Giants, but the other 2 teams put up numbers. So hopefully we'll get to see all 3 of them be viable.
Yeah, and I forget I was listening to a podcast and somebody was talking about Brady is one of those players. He's always done this where he just kind of wants to show off and pad his stats sometimes. And there might be games or situations where they don't need to go for the passing touchdown, but they will just because he wants to utilize his weapons and just show that he's still got it. And that's very true. We've seen New England games where they're up and they just keep scoring and they leave Brady in, they leave all the starters in. So, and I think that's going to be as much of a Brady decision as much as it is a Bruce Arians decision.
Yeah. I mean, why can't we see 3 relevant wide receivers? You know what I mean?
Oh, we definitely can. I mean, look at, we talk about the Rams from a couple years ago. We talk about the Cowboys with, even though Gallup hasn't been great, he was still a guy you could throw in there.
Oh, he was relevant for the time with Dak.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so real quick there. So that Bucs Raiders game was moved to the afternoon, and now the Seahawks Arizona game, which that's not a bad game to move to the prime time at all. But all those offensive linemen who were in trouble, they tested negative as of today. Some Bills players tested positive, including Dawson Knox. We'll keep our eye on that situation. And I didn't even know this. I just came upon this morning. Emmanuel Sanders is on the COVID-19 reserve list. Did you know that?
Yeah. I think the news came out yesterday. And
we're also going to mention all the injury updates, but Michael Thomas is out as well. What does this mean for Traquan Smith and Jared Cook?
Definitely a very nice add and a very nice flex play for sure. Traquan was nice with MT out some games with Emmanuel out too. He's the guy, so I would feel comfortable starting him if I needed to. No doubt about it.
Yeah, I'm surprised. I mean, we know Antonio Brown and Tom Brady are tight, so that, and it's to Tampa Bay, so I'm sure Antonio Brown is very happy where he landed, but I'm surprised the Saints didn't reach out to him. Maybe they did. They probably did, to be honest.
Yeah,
And
I'm sure many other teams did, but I'm sure Brown was the guy who chose where he wanted to go
I
after
bet
those
he
offers.
made up his mind. He already knew where he was going to sign before, probably, to be honest. Because it's like, do I want to go live in Seattle or do I want to go live in Tampa Bay and play with Tom Brady?
For sure, he wanted to go to a Super Bowl possible team, and those.
Yeah, and the Bucs are definitely a contender. Their defense is insane.
Yeah, they're putting it together soon.
Okay, so I'll just blaze through these injuries, and you tell me anything that stands out to you. So Joe Mixon's out. Austin Hooper. Yeah, definitely. Austin Hooper's out. Sammy Watkins is out. John Brown is out. Aaron Jones is questionable. Darrell Henderson was questionable. He was a full participant in practice, so he's looking pretty good. Justin Jackson is questionable, actually. Jamison Crowder is downgraded to doubtful. Michael Thomas is out. Raheem Mostert's out, obviously. Tyler Higbee's questionable. And Robert Woods is questionable. So a lot of these are Monday night players, and that worries me. Unless they're your must starts, I always start a Sunday guy unless it's a must start. Then I'll pick up a backup from Monday. And if you can't really go just grab Joshua Kelly off the waiver wire, but just if like, I don't know, who's the Rams' third wide receiver? Like, if you don't have a choice and Robert Woods is your guy, and then he gets announced out, then you pick up a backup wide receiver from one of those teams and you start one of those guys, for example. But which of these injuries has the biggest thing that stands out to you?
The biggest is obviously Mixon. I mean, he was having nice games. The backup Gio is a must. Gio Bernard, obviously, he's a must play because they don't have another guy, so you can expect him to get the run work and the pass work. So that's if you hopefully picked him up, that's why you grab your handcuffs. I also am really watching Aaron Jones because that situation can prove a lot for who you need to roster between Dillon or Williams. So if LaFleur plays it safe like he did with Devontae and holds an extra week out and Jones has to sit, then we have to watch out and see, hey, is it a Williams week or is it a Dillon week? Because it's important to keep that. If Dillon doesn't get any run, don't waste the roster space on him. If you picked him up and he runs, you struck gold for a little while.
Yeah, that one could be interesting because I think Jamal Williams gets a huge bump. I mean, honestly, if Jones is out, I feel better about starting Jamal Williams than Gio Bernard, to be honest. I really would, because look, I've been eyeing Jamal Williams for a while in some leagues, and I don't know why he was on some waiver wires. He was on some waiver wires, and I was like, why? I think it was week 3 or week 4. He had 8 catches. He was 8 for 8 for like 96 yards. And I was like, damn. So and Jones can catch the ball too, but I just think with Aaron Rodgers in that offense, and no matter what, if they're in a shootout, if they're down, if they're up, Jamal Williams is going to get the ball if Aaron Jones is out. So, and I do think A.J. Dillon will get some play. It's so weird to me. People talk about how the Packers didn't need to draft A.J. Dillon. They should have drafted a receiver or someone else to help them because they have Jamal Williams and Aaron Jones. But I think Jamal Williams is in a contract year, so I think they're going to let him go. Let him leave after this season and then have Jones and A.J. Dillon, because A.J. Dillon is a physical beast. And I remember I was watching the Tampa Bay game and they brought him in the game and the announcers were all talking about him and showing his calves. And I think that he's a really good running back that is not going to get any play this year unless there's an injury.
I agree. And, I think I read this. Jones and Williams got drafted in the same year. Obviously, Jones has proven himself to be the guy over there, and Williams can be potentially that guy on another team. So, to argue your point, if Williams has a decent year, he gets signed by a team that wants to give him a chance, then you have Dillon. So, I do think they need a receiver. And speaking of that, there's word on the street that they're trying to trade for one. So, that should be interesting. Maybe Gallup gets moved. Who knows? Someone like that. But I think Williams is gonna have a great game rather than Dillon.
Yeah, and I think Aaron Jones already re-signed signed his extension already earlier this year in the offseason or something. He did. So he's good to go. He's their guy. Man, can you imagine like if the Packers traded for like Julio Jones or something? That would be
nice.
Can you imagine? That would be ridiculous with Adams and Jones. I don't think we've ever seen that with like two wide receivers who could arguably any day be the best receiver in football, like on the same team.
Nuts. That would be really hard matchups for the opposing defense. That's for sure.
Yeah, for sure. So nothing that stands out. I mean, I think the biggest fill-ins would be, the Joe Mixon one is big. Michael Thomas out and Emmanuel Sanders out. Pick up Traquan Smith. Even if you don't need to start him, pick him up and have him on your bench because he could have some big games here. So we talked about some fill-ins already. So do you have any other like replacements if your guys are injured, whether they're on people's benches or on the waiver wire?
Yeah, I mean, real quick to go back to the injury report on that same hand in hand. If Higbee stays out, you kind of have to pick up Everett if you're in one of those tight end week streams because
absolutely,
Everett streaming up these past couple of weeks. If he's the only one there, then he's the only one there, and I can trust that offense to produce for him. That's a huge one for me.
Whenever it's just one of those guys, they're very fantasy relevant. When they're both in, it kind of hurts. They kind of split it. It takes them down to like half of what they could be.
Say Higbee's out. Would you start Hawkinson or Everett?
I'm still going Hawkinson because he has a great matchup. And he's been solid regardless, yeah.
What about Everett or Schultz?
I would go Everett.
Yeah, he's right there. He's above those I'm comfortable with streaming guys. Yeah. If Higbee's out, he surpasses them. I agree with you.
Yeah, for sure. Go ahead.
No. Let's move on. That was
we're just talking about some more replacements.
Okay.
So, like, it just depends, right? Because a lot of times – if you have a player, like if a wide receiver's out and their backup's going to play, your bench players are better than who that backup's going to be. But it just depends on your situation. Maybe you're in a league. There are like 10-team leagues where a lot of guys are hogging all these players and your team is just injury. Like you have like 4 guys injured, 1 guy hit the COVID list, and you're like, you need a desperation play. Like let's say you had John Brown and he was like your last flex option and you're screwed now. I would pick up Gabriel Davis, who is a rookie on the Buffalo Bills, and I actually chose him as my dynasty pick last week. And the Bills love this guy. He's a pretty big guy. He's like 6'2", 6'4". He's had some really good games and he's been very efficient. And when John Brown is out, I think it was 2 weeks ago, he had a really good game. So keep an eye on Gabriel Davis. And I think now with Drew Lock back, a lot of people have dropped Jerry Jeudy and Tim Patrick. I've seen Tim Patrick on the waiver wire. Your ride or die, Tim Patrick. Yeah. I've seen him on waiver wires. And look, and the thing is, I don't pick him up either, but I don't understand why other people don't pick him up.
I look across the rosters and I'm trying to make space myself, and I'm like, please, I hope you don't pick him up. I hope you don't pick him up because they have room. They have
it's so crazy because players like you and I, we utilize every roster spot we have.
Yeah.
Whether it's handcuffs or very high upside guys or lottery ticket players, right? So we don't want to drop anybody. But I look at other people's rosters and I'm like, dude, you can drop like 4 of these players to be honest. And there's like other guys you can go pick up.
That's an amazing thing because, if you're 2-4, even if you're 1-5 right now, players start to, all right, mid-year, I'm tired, whatever, my team's set, no need to check the waiver wire. This is where you turn 2-4, 3-3 into a winning season, into I'm making the playoffs. I hit the waiver wire gold. It doesn't end after week 1, week 2. It's a long season. So these guys that get you by week to week, like the Patricks of the world, beautiful pickups. You need to check it out.
Yeah, so I was going to say with Drew Lock coming back, he's better than their other options. So yeah. I would Jerry Jeudy or Tim Patrick if you need to fill in. Also, hey, AJ Green, he might be usable. Who knows?
I had him on the list. I think they figured it out. The word on the street is the stats were showing that Green is the long ball guy, and it just was not converting. It looks like Higgins moved to long ball, and they got AJ Green in the short game last week, which just let him be extremely valuable for that offense. So it looks like AJ Green is short, Boyd's middle, and Higgins is over the top. So maybe Burrow throwing 60 times a game can support all three of those. I don't think it's going to be week to week, but at this point, it's worth a try. It's worth a start if you need that filler.
Yeah, he was dropped everywhere. So, I mean, I'm not necessarily picking him up because, like I said, my roster's pretty full on most of my teams. But if you need him, I know some teams that need him. So he's definitely usable there. Some other guys, which I'm seeing this guy picked up a lot, which he should be, is Keelan Cole of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Yeah. Man, it's crazy. I never would think the Jaguars have 3 wide receivers that basically at least need to be rostered. You know, Chark is every week starter. We've seen Chenault have some flashes, and Cole has been solid. So I think all 3 of these guys should at least be rostered.
Yeah, it's like someone just doesn't love one of them. Someone doesn't like Chark. Someone doesn't like Cole. Someone doesn't know Chenault. I would say after a couple of weeks, Chenault has a nice floor but a limited ceiling. So you may want to move him down to 3rd on that list. But Cole is under the radar. I think someone just picked him up in our league, and I'm like, damn, no one rostered this guy. He's putting up decent numbers for a bench player that you.
I know. I looked him up last night, and in our main league, he was available, and I was like, wow. If I had a spot, I'd pick him up, but I just don't.
Also going back to the injury to tag on Jamison Crowder, if he actually does sit, I wouldn't mind filling in Brashard Perriman. If Darnold's back, why not? I mean, it's just a safer shot in the dark than playing with some of these other guys. So if he's available and the other guys aren't, I would probably rank him lower than the Tim Patricks.
For sure.
But I would still feel comfortable playing him if I had to in these bye weeks.
Yeah, and for me, Latavius Murray, if Latavius Murray is available in your league, go pick him up right now because he is arguably the most valuable handcuff in fantasy football, and he has standalone value. They are playing Carolina this week, I believe, and Carolina is one of the worst teams against the run. If the Saints get up big, they're going to hand the ball off to Latavius Murray. Latavius Murray had a 20-point game this season. For me, he's honestly a flex consideration.
I'm on the other side of that. He is top-end handcuff. I don't know why. Sometimes Kamara's rolling, doing all the work, and then goal line, here you go, Murray, get a touchdown, pat on the back, happy birthday type of stuff. I don't get it. I don't know why that team operates the way they do, but he is very important to have. I traded for Kamara, as you know, and I can't get Murray. He knows it's my handcuff, and he tries to rip me off for him. So, as you see, he does have standalone value just simply based off of handcuff value. So, yeah, you're very right on that. Go get him if he's available.
Well, the thing is they use him in the offense as well because they don't want to burn out Kamara. And Kamara doesn't need to play 90% of the snaps to be fantasy relevant. He could play 50% of the snaps and still ball out. So I just think, look, like you said, you have somebody who could probably get a lot more than they should from you for Latavius Murray. So he's definitely he should be rostered in every league, in my opinion, if not started. And if you need a deep dart throw, Marvin Jones Jr. is available in a lot of leagues. I'm not saying go pick up Marvin Jones Jr., but we've seen this guy. I worry because I've picked him up and dropped him in a few leagues. And I worry we're going to start seeing these Marvin Jones monster games. You know what I'm talking about, those 40-point blow-up games. And I'm like, damn it, why didn't I hold on to him? They're playing Atlanta, I believe, right? Aren't they playing Atlanta?
Let me check.
I believe they're playing Atlanta this week. Yeah. And it's a spot, man. I mean, we expect Kenny Golladay to have a good game, but we know what Marvin Jones is capable of. So if you're desperate, I would eye him, to be honest.
I'll tell you, in a 10-man league, you're probably not stretching that deep.
Probably not, no.
12 and 14, he's worth a try for me.
Absolutely,
but I need to see a little bit more before I feel comfortable because he can blow for 40, but then it's 8, 4, 10, 6. It's all over the place on the low end. So, yeah, if it's a stretch, I can see that because the matchup. Hey, awesome. Let me ask you this. we go back to the names. Would you rather start Beasley versus the Jets, or would you rather start AJ Green versus Cleveland?
Interesting. If I had to choose, I'm probably gonna go. Oh man, John Brown is out. Okay. Man, I would lean AJ Green for me, but Cole Beasley's probably the safer play, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, I could see both. I got to go AJ Green just because I think Cleveland's a little bit better than the Jets, so the competition will call for.
That's a good point.
That's just me. But if you're reaching that far, you're shooting in the dark just a little bit on both of them.
That makes me think of something real quick, which I didn't prepare for. Do you think Zach Moss or possibly Devin Singletary is going to have a big game this week?
If any, it's not going to be Moss. I don't think he's just doing anything this year.
What I mean is, look, Devin Singletary is our starter, if you can call that a starter. But no, I'm just kidding. But he hasn't been great in fantasy this year. He had like 2 good games, and he's a very talented player. But I just meant for fantasy purposes. But if they're blowing the Jets out, you think they're gonna hand the rock to Devin Singletary to run the clock out, or give their rookie some play?
Maybe TJ Yeldon. I don't know, to be honest with you.
You just hate Zach Moss for some reason.
It's just a crap. It's almost worse than the Rams situation because I was watching the game a couple weeks ago and Yeldon got all the run and I'm like, okay,
it's so weird.
I don't know what to tell you. I'm not picking up Yeldon, but it's hard for me to say. But maybe if they're blowing him out, it's like, all right, Rook, run the rock, see what you want to do. Your guess is as good as mine, but I don't feel comfortable playing Yeldon or Moss. Possibly.
I think even people who know forget that these coaches don't give a shit about our fantasy teams. Like, we're always like, why are they putting TJ Yeldon in? Like, what? They have no concern.
No,
so
they don't care at all. Not a single.
6 running backs if they could. Like, it just it doesn't matter. They're trying to get the win, and that's why like with the Rams, right? Like why Malcolm Brown is in the game so much, because he's good at blocking and because the coach trusts him. So it's like you're never gonna, Henderson is like, he's been the guy. Like if you're starting any Rams running back, it's Darrell Henderson, but you never feel good about it.
Mm-hmm.
Never feel good about it. Cool. So if you don't have any more replacements, let me propose some flex decisions to you here. And this is always gonna depend on your league size, depend on how your roster is, but these are just some that I came up with. So, and this is the thing, because like normally, like Joe Mixon, right, is your starter, but let's say now Gio Bernard's playing. Okay, now Gio Bernard is more like a flex option, right? Mm-hmm. So let's say Gio Bernard or Deebo Samuel.
Bernard. Simply because I got to stay steady on my fool's gold pick of Deebo. I don't want to start him.
Yeah, and you got to go running back most of the time, for sure. And especially even in PPR, Gio Bernard is probably even has more catching upside than Deebo Samuel.
Not only is it a safer floor, I feel it's even a larger ceiling for Bernard.
Yeah, for this week for sure. Okay, this is interesting. So, Chase Claypool or CeeDee Lamb this week?
Dallas plays who?
They play the Washington football team.
Ooh, that's a nice one. I kind of want to write down.
Deontay Johnson's back as well in Pittsburgh.
I'll go CeeDee Lamb just because that Dak to Dalton has still showed him a lot of targets. And I know Claypool's been popping off, have been consistent, but he's a long ball guy. So I'd rather just take the most targets and see what I can do with him. So it's close. I'll take Lamb.
Yeah, that's a tough one for sure. Okay. And this one might not be tough, but I think you got to think about it further than just like, face value. So Brandon Cooks or Juju Smith-Schuster?
Without a doubt, no question, easy. And I can't believe I'm saying it, but Brandon Cooks. I hated that offense more than anybody. And as soon as they fired their coach and they moved away, it's blown up for almost everybody. So give me the hot hand. I don't want the guy that's competing with 3 to 4 other receivers literally in Pittsburgh, you know?
So the only reason, because I think most people are going Cooks on that. The only reason I even propose it is because Juju, there's an argument to be made that Deontay Johnson in the game is better for Juju. I don't know how to explain that, but if you look at Juju's good games this year, Deontay Johnson has been there. I mean, he's got injured and left a lot of games, but still. And then he has a good matchup this week too.
Yeah, no, he's that receiver that sadly benefits off other people taking the eyes away from him. So maybe Claypool and Johnson get the focus, and this guy runs free.
Yeah, and he's the slot, so his spot is not in jeopardy. Like he's always the slot.
That's another point. He's always been there. So what's the deal the whole season? And his ceiling has been very limited this year. So I rather take Deshaun throw in for 400, Cooks getting 150 and a touchdown than anything Juju's shown me so far.
Okay. And so a lot of these proposals, people might be like, I'm starting these guys in my starter slots. How are these flex options? And I just look around the leagues that I play in and I look at other teams and I see guys they're deciding between. So this is how I kind of came up with these. So it just really depends on the situation, because some people's flex options might be like Marvin Jones Jr. or, Latavius Murray, that some deep leagues are like eyeing things like that, but that wasn't one of mine. But the reason I bring that up is because people might be starting these guys in their actual starting spot. And this one is DeAndre Swift or T. Higgins.
What's the status on AP?
He's playing. I mean, was he banged up?
I thought he got banged up and Swift got the remainder of the runs. Was I mistaken on that?
No, he didn't. He actually played a lot too. What's interesting about that is, look, I'm a big DeAndre Swift guy, obviously. I mean, not obviously to the listeners, but to you. I drafted him in a lot of leagues and I had him, but I've traded him away since. But the interesting thing about that is their running backs got total like 60 touches or something like that, because they were up so big. And so a lot that DeAndre Swift's big game might be like some garbage time-ish fantasy points, to be honest. And I still think he's solid, but I think he's more of a flex play than a starting running back in fantasy right now.
Given the situation, I'm going to go Higgins, because if Atlanta...
Well, you're big on Higgins too.
Yeah, I mean, it's close. It's not an easy one for me, but they're playing Atlanta. So if I think Galladay's going to have a big day, Stafford's going to have a big day, I don't think there's going to be big days on the ground. You know what I mean? So that's the only reason this week I lean Higgins. But I do like Swift's coming up on the up and up. He's had a nice year, undercover year, to be honest.
Yeah, for sure. All right, last one. And the thing is, before last week, Kenyon Drake was on benches, man. So this is why this is, and people were starting somebody else. So it just depends. So if you had to, and I propose all of these in one flex leagues, meaning you only have one flex spot, because that's what most people play. We play in our leagues because I think the fantasy world should move to 2 flex spots, because if you look at one flex leagues, these benches are like stacked and you're benching guys you should never bench. And that's why these proposals that I'm stating are like, most people are starting both of these guys. But if you had to choose between, at your last flex spot, Kenyon Drake or Antonio Gibson this week.
No doubt, Kenyon Drake. No doubt. I don't like,
just because of that garbage time fluke touchdown that you won your Monday Miracle on last week.
That was a beautiful day, beautiful night. No, it's not that. Gibson is the guy over there, but that
They're playing Dallas.
That team is not offensively fluent enough, and it seems like he lost the password game fully to McKissick. So I still rather have the volume today, last week, 2 weeks ago, even when Drake was busting. I rather take the volume than a running back getting 2 downs on a bad team, if that makes sense. And it's not to say Gibson won't have better games than Drake. That probably will happen, but I rather just take a high offense and a lot of volume in Drake.
Okay. So I'll just say mine real quick. So for Gio Bernard and Deebo Samuel, I'll go Gio Bernard for sure. Chase Claypool and CeeDee Lamb, I'm going to lean Chase Claypool. I just feel better about the situation. He has a great matchup. I think it doesn't matter who else is on the field. This guy's going to eat. And I love CeeDee. I'm the biggest fan of CeeDee Lamb that I know. And even with Dalton and he's still good. I love this guy goes for it. He like calls for the pass. He's like, give me the ball. And I love him. But I just think this week Chase Claypool has a bigger game, but it's close. That was the most difficult one for you that you had to think about. Brandon Cooks and Juju. I go Cooks just because how can you not with the recent games? But look, don't be surprised if Juju has a blow-up game this week. Honestly, don't be, because it's going to happen.
He's a good buy low. He's a good buy low. If you
definitely. Swift or Higgins, ooh, that's tough. I'm going to go Swift because they're playing Atlanta, and Swift can definitely catch the ball. Carry-on's not getting any play. AP cannot catch the ball. So I wonder what AP's like career passing or receiving yards and stats are. That would be interesting to look at. I'm sure you would have a good idea as a Vikings fan.
Yeah, I mean, he's known as an amazing runner, but he did a little pass catch work for us, but, there were fillers behind him a couple
And
weeks.
back then, they didn't utilize running backs the way they do now.
It's completely changed in the past 10 years.
Yeah, but I still go Swift. And then the Drake and Gibson one is actually the most difficult one for me because I think Gibson could have a huge game against Dallas, but I'm still going to lean Drake because I think he is the starting running back on that team, has a great offense. So I'll go with that one. So the only ones we disagree on are I'm going Swift over Higgins and I'm going Claypool over CeeDee Lamb.
We shall see.
All right, Justin, we're going to go to you this week for your fantasy etiquette of the week. And so tell people what that is.
The fantasy etiquette of the week is something that I just learned to really stand by recently, and that's to be honest. When you're specifically making trades with members of your league, you have to be forefront about the reason behind your trade. For example, we know the news with Antonio Brown and Godwin owners, Evans owners. You kind of panicked a little bit and maybe you wanted to shuffle. Listen, if you're playing fantasy football in a serious league, everyone knows the situation. It's not a secret. So when I made some calls to see what I can get for Godwin, one of the guys, I said, Godwin for Golladay. He said, I don't get it. Why do you want to get rid of Godwin so much? And I'm thinking, well, do I try to spin it to my favor? Or do I be upfront? And I was upfront with him. I said, listen, I don't know the situation. I know you like Godwin. Let's do a deal. He decided not to do it. But the idea behind that is if I were to say, oh, I love Godwin. He's really good. He hasn't been injured. Galladay's just my guy. And then he knows that's BS. It's going to ruin that relationship. No trust is there. Future trades won't happen. Members around the league probably will hear it and say, hey, I don't want to deal with a guy who's trying to backdoor me or stab me in the back and whatnot. The goal, be honest. Everyone playing knows the details. So maybe they like the situation more than you and it works out. It doesn't cause any harm, to be honest. It's just the way to go, in my opinion. Stay etiquette, stay strong, be honest.
I actually love that because I've thought about this before too, because a lot of people are kind of shysty when they're making trade offers, and they will. And look, maybe that's part of the game, right? Maybe it's kind of like not that you're trying to completely fool somebody, but you're just kind of, maybe people exaggerate, right? Like, oh, look, Godwin was the number 2 wide receiver last year. He's going to be a beast for the rest of the season. Okay, then why are you trying to get rid of him? It's like, you just got to be honest. Like, look, I'm a little worried about with Antonio Brown there. It obviously is going to hurt him. Like, I think, and by the way, I'm glad the person you offered that to denied, because Kenny Golladay over Chris Godwin all day. I mean, honestly, you should have offered a little bit more on your side, but you have the right to request the trade.
Oh, he offered me that at the beginning of the year, and I couldn't justify that trade when it's
Well, at the time, because and this was before the season started.
That's the only reason I approached him again, because maybe he.
Oh, okay. Because right now that's like a little lopsided. I would say maybe you throw in, a running back and get a lesser running back on that side.
I agree, but at the same time, you said it hurts Godwin. I can make the argument it does.
Well, you already made the argument earlier in the show that you think this doesn't hurt Godwin.
That's my point, but I'm not always right, so I'd rather play it safe and just get Galladay.
Well, the thing for me, I don't think the Antonio Brown thing with Godwin doesn't worry me. I've been worried about Godwin way before they signed Antonio Brown because
reasons.
It's not. And look, he's been in and out for injuries, but even when he's in, he hasn't had a blow-up game or anything like that. And I just think this team is not. Look, we thought Tampa Bay was going to be like a Dallas or like a Rams or like a Chiefs offensively, right? That's not the case. But this is better for the Bucs because they're a Super Bowl contender, but they're not a light them up fantasy team. They're not.
It's hard. I definitely agree. Godwin is not who he was last year. But if you look, he's played 3 games, truly 2.5 games. He left in a hammy in week 6, but 13.9, 17.4, 9.8. I know you drafted him in the 3rd round, maybe reached for the 2nd. Don't think you got lucky in the 4th, but if I can get 15 points from him week in, week out at this point, I'm very happy because I've pivoted enough to secure my roster knowing that he's not where I drafted him. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, look, I have Godwin in the league, as you know, and I don't feel good about that trade at all. And by the way, I traded Adam Thielen for Godwin. I traded Adam Thielen and Edelman for Godwin. But at the time, it made sense.
I threw in Scotty Miller.
Well, yeah, my fantasy nemesis, Scotty Miller. Well, I just wanted the handcuff. Basically, I saw Scotty Miller as somewhat of a handcuff to Chris Godwin. Not that he plays the slot, but just more opportunities if Godwin's out. But I have Godwin now, and he's back. And people are trying to get him for the low from me. And I'm like, no, I've held on to him. I need him for a comeback in that league. So, because he's a possible home run, if he's solid, like he could be arguably the best wide receiver on the Bucs for the rest of the season in fantasy.
He needs to stay healthy. That's his major problem, in my opinion.
Because we know Brady loves the slot. And I think AB will be decent. I think Evans will just continue to be low volume, but a lot of touchdowns. I think Godwin has the most upside right now.
I'm hoping all good things for all those receivers. That's what I'm hoping.
Yeah, me too. I just traded for Mike Evans in a keeper league, actually. The manager was worried. The manager was worried about Antonio Brown, but he actually picked up Antonio Brown. So he's like, look, I'm worried about the situation, but also I have both Bucs wide receivers, so I'm willing to trade Evans away. And in this league, I'm kind of in a rebuild in a way because it's not the same as a dynasty. It's like 6 keeper, but I don't have a great record. So I'm selling all my guys that I don't want to keep for draft picks and combining them for better players. I traded DJ Chark and Darrell Henderson Jr. for Mike Evans.
No picks on the back end?
No picks. It's just that. But if you look at this in general, right? I think Mike Evans still, he's the best player in the deal, right? But in fantasy, you could arguably say that right now DJ Chark is probably a better fantasy option right at the moment. So this guy loves running back, so I throw in Darrell Henderson, who's been pretty solid. He's not a guy you feel great about in your second running back spot, but he's definitely startable. So I think it was actually fair. But if you look at it from my perspective, I'm not winning that league this year unless I have a major comeback. Now, instead of deciding if I want to keep Chark over somebody else, I'm definitely keeping Evans as one of my 6 keepers. So I think it was a good deal.
Okay, we'll see.
Do you think I gave up too much?
I think you made a bad deal, in my opinion. If you plan on keeping Evans and you sold Chark, I'd rather keep Chark in that situation for next year because he's younger, more leg. Hopefully him and Minshew get better. don't get me wrong, I don't feel comfortable keeping any of them. Maybe in the 60, I had to review, but I personally think you lost that.
No matter what, in this league, Evans is going to be a keeper on somebody's team. The thing for me is Evans is only 26.
Yeah.
And I think I'm not thinking about this year. I think this year is how his role is right now is how it's going to be. I'm thinking about going forward. Brady's not going to be his quarterback for the rest of his career.
Good point.
So I think I don't know who are they going to sign Winston, bring Winston back? I don't know who's going to be the quarterback after Tom Brady leaves. They're not worried about that right now.
That's a good point to consider. Okay.
So I'm thinking about his career. Look, and DJ Chark could have. You're right. He is younger, but it's not. If it was Dynasty, I would never make that trade. Six keepers different. You can rely on older guys in that league and not worry about it so much because you can rebuild your team in the draft every year. So it's a little bit different. All right, cool. So speaking of, and I love your etiquette of the week. Be honest, because you're right. If you are, lying and stuff during trade negotiations, and they come to find that out, or you actually get the deal done, and they're like, "Man, you screwed me over." It does. You want to keep trade relationships with the people in your league who actually trade. You want to keep those relationships healthy because it's very important if you're one of those players who likes to trade.
True.
Awesome. So let's dive into some keeper dynasty eyes. So one guy that I would just keep an eye on, because some dynasty leagues have like huge rosters, like 22-man rosters, things like that. And that's so you can keep young prospects and wait on them, and you're not forced to drop them. And if you look at the Jets, so Jamison Crowder is doubtful, and they just activated Denzel Mims. Denzel Mims is a rookie wide receiver. I had him on my dynasty team when the year started because I was like, this guy is going to be good. And he's a pretty big dude, and he's very talented. So check out Denzel Mims. Maybe throw him at the end of your bench on a dynasty league and see how he does this week. Do you have a dynasty eye this week?
That's super sleeper. I didn't have that. I had more of I'm assuming he's rosters in dynasty leagues, but based off Yahoo.
Yeah, mine's a super sleeper, but this guy's 6'3". I just think that the Jets don't have anything exciting for young players going forward, and they drafted this guy to be their number one wide receiver for the future.
Yeah. I got another rookie running wide receiver as well, and with all the talk of all the other rookies, this guy who got drafted just as well as they did, Jalen Reagor, he's about to come back after their bye.
Yeah.
And it seems like a lot of people just didn't have the space or didn't want to hold him. And if he's on your wire, I see no reason why him and Fulgham can't be the 1-2 punch over there moving forward. So check it out. Rager's the guy.
Yeah, I think that's a great one. So the good thing about that is for managers is he's been on IR. So in that six keeper league, he's probably not going to end up being one of my keepers, but I have him on my IR. So that's why I love, and that's actually a point I wanted to make is that leads perfectly into my helpful strategy. If you're in a dynasty or keeper league, move your players that go on IR to the IR spot and pick up a prospect, or guys on the COVID-19 list, move them to the IR, pick up a prospect. Because what do you have to lose? You move this guy to the IR, you pick up a Denzel Mims or Gabriel Davis or whatever, and if they blow up, now, okay, maybe I'll hold on to this guy and see how he does for the rest of the season, or you trade him or whatever. So I think there's nothing, like, you have nothing to lose with doing that. Because I look at a lot of rosters in my leagues, and like they have guys on the who are out or on the IR spot, and they're just on their bench. I'm like, you could have utilized that spot to pick up a speculative ad or something.
Yeah, definitely. That's an amazing point, because even I fell victim to that, because I've had a couple players out or IR, and I'm so eager to pick up my guy that I didn't free up a spot previously just by shifting them to the IR. Mm-hmm. And say I lost Ertz, which I did, and I wanted Goddard because he's about to come back. I forgot to pick up Goddard, move him to the IR, then make my position for that waiver pickup that I wanted.
Exactly. So and once their game starts, you can't make that move anymore.
And I lost the opportunity, and that's the beautiful aspect of utilizing every single roster spot.
Absolutely.
It doesn't matter if it's a goater or just sleeper on the IR.
Anything, a backup running back, like
use it.
Anything. Cool. Do you have a helpful tip in Dynasty?
Yeah, my helpful tip is don't hold on to players with absolutely no trade value that is just living in their past name, and you will never start them. I don't care if Alshon Jeffrey's going to come back and get run. If I have the chance to pick up Claypool, Fulgham, any of these younger guys we're talking about, I don't want to live off the idea of, oh, well, if Jackson and Jeffrey come back, they're going to be good. Enough. You know what I mean? Let your team on and hit these big-time potential players rather than these mediocre, at best, midline players. Don't handcuff your roster to nothing, basically.
I 100% agree with you. I had AJ Green in my Dynasty League. I dropped him, and I picked up Justin Jackson. That was like 3 weeks ago, though. So beautiful. To your point, that's way better. Like, I don't need AJ Green in that league. Like, I'm starting, Cooper Kupp, Kenny Golladay, and CeeDee Lamb, and now Chase Claypool. So, when am I ever going to start AJ Green when I have those guys?
Just has no potential, just eating up a spot.
Yeah, never. Cool. And I like to also touch on Superflex leagues because they're becoming more popular, and I actually love them because there's so many quarterbacks in the league, and we only get to start one, and every other position, running back, tight end, wide receiver, all the waiver wire is scoured. They're all picked up. There's maybe a couple speculative ads here and there, but quarterback, there's a ton of usable guys. It makes fantasy way more fun. I think people should play in more Superflex leagues, but if you didn't already, pick up Tua. I'm not going to try to pronounce his last name. Tua Tagovailoa. I don't know how to say it, but I did see him picked up in he was already rostered in all my Superflex leagues. So good on you guys. I'm kind of mad. Gabe and I play in a redraft Superflex league, and Gabe picked him up. I put in a waiver for Tua, and Gabe also had a higher waiver priority and picked him up. So damn you, Gabe.
He's probably the best quarterback in the history of the NFL. He has 100% pass completion percentage.
Yeah, he should just never play again. And then there you go. And also another thing, don't drop Andy Dalton yet if you're in a Superflex league. Look, that was a terrible game. That was a first time out as a starter. Prime time Andy is not something that's been successful in the past. So look, and I don't know if you know this, Justin, but in Superflex leagues, there's no quarterbacks available. What's his name? What's the Jets quarterback?
Flacco or Darnold?
Darnold was dropped in our league, and he was available for like 2 weeks, and then somebody picked him up. So I'm like, in my opinion, don't give up on Andy Dalton just yet. Like, let's see how it goes.
He can be good with that offense.
Because you got to roster 3 or 4 quarterbacks with, especially this year, and also with bye weeks and things like that. All right, well, that's going to do it for this episode of the First Round Fantasy Podcast on the Strategy Saturdays. Thank you for joining me, Justin. That was a lot of fun. I'm your host, Jacob, and if you have not, follow us on social media. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Let us know in the comment section what you thought of the show today and anything that we talked about. We'll see you guys next time.